Yo, it's been a while. Here we are, next to the two bikes. I got my sis and my brother-in-law, both sr125s, both similar sort of age, exact same colour, his and hers. Anyway, today, while I'm waiting for a bit to come for their Volvo, because the steering lock mechanism is playing about, I thought I might change the leaky fork seals on my brother-in-law's bike. So let's get on it. So you've got various types of fork configurations, some of which require you to assemble the fork before you can slide the seal back down, like on the Honda Super Dream. I had to do that on that one. And you've got to create some sort of slider to whack it down whilst this is still on here. And you've also got to protect the seal going down over the fork leg from catching on the top here, for example. But on these ones, I believe, we'll see, we'll take them apart. I believe you separate them first, and then you can just put the seal out, pop the new seal in, and then you can put the stanchion back into the fork leg. But let's see. I'm going to crack the top nuts off whilst it's still here, whilst it's still assembled, and then I'm going to start by disassembling the front end, so the mudguard, the caliper, the front wheel. And once the front wheel's up, I've got to chop it up so it doesn't fall forward. And I'm just going to unclamp the triple trees and you should slide out. Now I've told you what I'm going to do, I probably will speed this bit up because I'll listen to the radio. So I'm just going to crack these nuts off whilst just to here. I think it's 17mm. It's quite a shallow nut, so it's just quite loose, that one. So cut that one off. Same with this side. There we go. So the fork's off, and I've just realised that you don't actually need to take the top nut off completely, because it's the same size as the actual stanchion, so it will slide out. On some forks it's slightly oversized and that sort of clamps onto the triple tree, but in this case it can slide right out. It does make it a little bit easier if it's tight though to undo that whilst it's still in the bike. Obviously, because it's stuck then, but now you're fighting against yourself. So I'm just going to clean it up very quickly with a bit of brake cleaner. It's a bit greasy. This side's not leaking as bad as the other one, but it's still got a bit of road grime on it. Just make things a little bit easier. Okay, I'm just going to undo this top nut and pour oil from the forks into the container. See how much is lost. It should take about, I think, 184 cc's, which is the same as millilitres, I think. Let's see. Again, this is finger tight. But when we unscrewed it in the 4S price, it's on the bike. Might as well check the O-ring on there while you're at it. There we go. Now the oil, this doesn't look too dirty, but the oil you need to replace it with, it says in the Haynes manual, is 1030. That's what it says. Or 10 weight fork oil. Now I've not got any 1030 about. I've got 1040 though, so it shouldn't be a problem, because as you probably know, the 10 is when the oil's cold, and the 40 is when the engine's up to, well, it was when the oil's up to sort of operating temperature in an engine. Now, because these are forks, they're not going to get hot, so they're going to stay at 10, aren't they? Or maybe a little bit hot, lower viscosity as they warm up, for example. So 1040 will do the same job as 1030 basically. That we're at 175 already. So, like I said, this one wasn't leaking too bad, so I imagine this is spot on. There you go, that's about right. There will be some oil stuck in the sort of the pathways of the damper, etc. But there you go. Okay. Right, so what do you have inside this leg? There's a spacer, which is doesn't go in any way. We've got a fork spring. Ooh, a spacer first. Here it comes. See, there's a lot of extra oil in there popping out. Now you might notice that fork spring, so you can see that has tighter coils at the top than the bottom, so it's all more sort of progressive. Okay, so remember that. Washer, spacer, and then in some bikes there's an Allen key which you need to undo from the bottom, which you need to undo whilst there's still tension, otherwise it's about to get out, which that's the damper rod, which sort of locates there. But in this one it seems there's nothing there. So to dismantle this, take off this dust seal off, which is covered in tape. This is all perish, there's cracks around it. Ooh, that is crusty. Now, I've cleaned away a lot of the rust, but you can see it's still pretty crusty around there. I just tried my circlip spanners on there, and it's slightly bent the pork, so this is wedged. So this is going to need a little bit of tapping to get this out. I mean, it's still a bit cruddy. Now I don't have a punch, and I'm working with my brother-in-law's, so this is the best that I can muster up. So. I did see some movement then actually. So I'm just going to continue working this. I'm going to be squirting it in. I'm not worried about using heat. There's nothing here to damage apart from the seal, which I'm going to replace anyway. So I'm just going to keep working this, tapping it, working it, until we get this circlip out. All good fun. Yeah, interesting. So what we've got is a kind of a little bit of a crusty circlip, and the space underneath. They'll probably be okay to use. A nice sharp edge still on there I'll clean those up and probably use those again. I mean, once that's in its groove, you know, it's not going to pop out. And it's still got thick. It's a bit crusty, but it's still got its thickness. I mean, trying to find these parts that are probably dealership only and probably take a couple of weeks to get to me. What's happened here, most likely, is that this seal has been letting in water because this bike has been sitting. It was, before I got it for my brother-in-law, it was sitting for a good, I don't know, 10 years outside, undercover, but still. Some of the moisture's got down there, and that was rusted a buggery. It's all clean now. The next task is to pop this seal out. I've just wedged it in this sort of fake workmate jobby thing, and it's just a case of using its own weight as a slide hammer to pull this seal out. Okay, you can do it out, but just for video purposes I've got it wedged in there. So I've got my foot on the bench. You can do this without a bench, and you can just sharp taps. You can see the seal just coming up. And there we are. Here we are. There we go. Quite a lot of oil in there. Probably a lot of WD-40 that I squirted down as well. Here you can see what we have. It's all going to roll off here because it's a slight angle. There's damper rod in there as well. And that is it. Just some WD-40 down there. Okay, next step is to clean this stuff up. This is what we find inside the forks once you're taking them apart. Whole stanchion assembly. There's the old seal. You just take off, and I noticed straight away as I'm removing this that this stanchion's got quite a bit of pitting on the top here. Okay, but that's not actually in the travel. The travel is from about there. 1 second. There to there, and this is all above the triple tree. So it's not a massive deal, but we'll have to make that smooth. This one wet and dry. This one I'm going to use wet and dry. Just take the edge off. I'm using 800 grit, just so as we slide the new seal down, it doesn't damage it. If I sort of sand it and it's still not that smooth up here, no big deal. What I'll do, I'll just get a bit of sort of an old bit of sort of milk bottle, the plastic, you know, recycled type, the plastic stuff, the white stuff. Wrap that around there first in sort of a cone sort of shape. Slide the new seal on and drag the whole sort of assembly down until it passes all this. That way you won't damage the new seal. Alright, so I've just cleaned all this. Brake cleaner, blah blah blah, inside, get much of the oil out you can. This bike's only done 10,000 miles, so I don't think any of this will be worn. These sort of bushes are replaceable, they've got little circlips on, etc. Okay. These little holes here, you see, and that's where the oil passes through to dampen. Right. Yeah, so my brother-in-law got some new oil seals. I never heard of that make. I usually go for Athena, but these are sort of Sifam, which are French, but fork seals are fork seals, right? So what I'm going to do, clean this up. I'm also going to clean up the inside of in here, getting the grooves out properly, and clean this area because it needs to be nice and smooth for the new seal to push in. Alright, so I'll just do that quickly. Oh, also note which way the seal goes on. The side of the seal, which you can see, which is where you can see the wire and stuff in it, goes down. So the top of the seal you see is the part of the seal which you see the writing on, which will be looking up at you if you're sat on the bike, for example, you know, down. And that's the side that you push down. Okay. So if you could feel roughness with your fingernail that's proud, then that potentially could knacker out your seal as you put it down. Okay, so you want to get it smooth. I mean, it gets to a certain extent. You'll have to either re-chrome or just renew your stanchions. Believe it or not, these things are cheaper than you think. I've got a mate who's got a YBR. I think he bought the whole fork assemblies, so just shoved them in. I think it was like 50 quid, something stupid like that. But they're Chinese and they're not original parts, so longevity wise, I do not know. But already, it's much smoother. Bit over there. Because obviously once you get too bad pitting, and it works opposite way, instead of scraping on the seal, in theory, because you've got an area which is hollow, you know, concave, then oil can pass the seal and out, so you in effect get leaky seals even with the new seals. But I don't think it should be a problem here because the actual travel area is okay. It's just because these bits haven't been exposed to oil. They started to rust. That's smooth. I must reiterate that do not use coarse paper. This is 800 and it's worn 800, so it's actually probably more like 1200. You don't want to be scratching this. You want to be really like almost mirror-like still. There you go. And then we just clean out. I've got a bit of wire wool here, quite fine. Clean this area out. Not too crazy. Just make sure it's nice and smooth. And that way, when you drive the new seal, it shouldn't catch. Lovely, nice and clean. Because that was quite corroded around there. And a tiny spray of the brake cleaner. And left in there. There we go. So basically we're now ready for reassembly. Pop back in the damper rod. Just drops in. Okay. And then just pops in there. There we go. We're in. And then give it a little bit of oil, pork oil, whatever you're using. Just a bit of engine oil, the same viscosity, and then some inside there as well when we get to that. So, like I said, writing on the top, popping on there, sliding on, he says. Oil on the inside of there as well. Here we are. Slide it down. And we can push this down much we can with the hands, which is quite easy actually, which is good. We will get tighter. So, and now we need to drive that down, and I've made a special tool for that, which is this. So, what it is basically, these is, well, you can use old pipe, but this is old, what they called, you know, the old sort of, gun things. You can use plastic pipe if you wish, but basically what you need is it's a contact point that you can slide down. And this needs to be the same diameter as this. You're basically using a slide hammer to whack down, whack down, whack down, whack down. Boom, 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 boom. Now, I'm going to get that on a flat surface, so I'm going to do this, bang, 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 a bit easier for me, and I'll clean my hands with the covered oil. But the idea now is to get that seal down as far where it will bottom out, but as soon as you can see the groove where that circlip goes, with a little bit below it as well, that you're down further enough. So after a good for like 10 minutes of whacking, boom, 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 rotate, 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 we now have the seal, and you can see, just about to see the groove there. So we're now ready to put that washer and the circuit back in. So I put the washer back in, and then you need to put the lovely conditioned circuit back in. The sharp side goes down, okay. Like in all circlips, sharp side goes to this flat surface, and let's squeeze that back in into its position. It clicks, click, 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 clicky, clicky. And we are in. It was in its groove. And there you go. That's the leg back together. Okay? So from here on, slide that dust seal back on. It's used, so I'm going to have to put some tape, electrical tape around it. And then it's just a case of popping the spring back in. So I've just put some black, like electrical tape around there. It's not ideal, but we haven't got one to replace it. So there you go. So from here on, what you need to do is pop your spring back in, remembering the tight claws at the top. Pops in there. Then the washer. And then pulls out. Then spacer, along with the top cap. That's basically it. Okay. Obviously we need to fill these with the oil, but assembly wise we're done. So be like this, put your oil in. What did I say it was? 184, 182 cc's. Oil in, cap on, torque it up, back in the frame, and jobs are good 'un.